Welcome to round number 3. After 2 wins in the first 2 rounds, I now was facing a FIDE Master with around 2170 with the black pieces. And in those kind of open tournaments with a lot of players, I really should still win this game to stay on the top and to reach the very top. So I was trying to win with black, of course, and the game started with the Sicilian, which I was happy about. But then he played c3, which I was unhappy about because this Alapin line, it's sometimes a bit drawish and it's sometimes very hard to win, but still, in the rapid chess, anything can happen. So I played my normal stuff, knight f6, and he already surprised me here with bishop to d3. I must admit, I have not studied this move carefully enough, and I was already not exactly sure what to do. So I played knight c6 pretty quickly because I did not want to go d5, which I should and would if I would face this position once again. And after e5, knight d7, bishop to c2. What you should not do is play knight c6, because then white gets quite a good version of the advanced variation in the French. But instead you should take advantage of the fact that white has not already played d4, but instead maneuvered his bishop first. And the moves I like here for black are d4 and c4. So one of those would be my choice for a future game. Which one? Okay, don't know yet. But this is quite reliable. Go d5 immediately and then go for d4 or c4. So instead I went for knight c6 because I thought, okay, I might counter his threat later and I might still go d5 or even e5. But the more I was looking at the position, the more unhappy I was with e5. For example, e5, d4 doesn't look so appealing, and I didn't know how to handle this tension in the center without getting like some disadvantages. And in fact, white is better here. And after d5, now I already played this knight c6, so after e5 and knight d7, he's in time to get d4, which is the French type version, which I wanted to avoid. So now it's too late for this. So I was really looking for some ideas. I was considering all kind of stuff, also d6, but d6 is giving up the center for free. And I came up with an idea which I'm actually quite happy with. But white could, of course, get some advantage against it with accurate play. So I play queen c7, which is a bit tricky, and it's mainly directed against white's biggest idea, which is pawn to d4. So what would happen if he went pawn d4? Anyway, I would just take. In general, black is not unhappy if white takes with the knight, because then he has no strong pawn center anyway, and there is no worry whatsoever. This is the critical move, but here I have knight b4, and with the queen on c7, this is much harder to meet, because something like bishop b3 does not work at all, because there are some fancy tactics, like even queen to c1 is a move. It's not the best, but it's already much better for black. I will regain the material of knight d3, but even stronger is the immediate knight to d3, and black is already very close to winning. I will win the pair of bishops. If he takes, I will take with a check, and my queen will come in. Also, the e4 is lost in some variations. So here he would have to give me his bishop, but here I have the two bishops, and in general I'm not unhappy here. However, he waited with this d4 move. There is no rush, and he instead decided to castle, because my queen c7, it's not that useful. It's just preventing this one idea, but maybe he can set up something like a3 and then go d4, and still my queen would justify why it's there. However, my idea was to go d5 at this point, having ruled out this annoying option of him going e5, because my queen is there and he would just drop the pawn. However, I was also thinking that he might get an advantage after ed5, knight e5, and d4, and this is in fact true. And in the game I was a bit scared of this. Computer saying it's just a bit better for white, but you never know, and you need to calculate this kind of stuff. c4, knight goes back, and d5, and it's not guaranteed that this is fine for black, or can be even a lot worse. In fact, it's fine, but you need to make sure that it is. So this would be a good try for white to fight for an advantage. Instead, he played a very calm d3, which made me a bit happy, but still, there were some questions to solve. I played bishop to e7, he played rook e1, and now I took, as he threatened to move his pawn to e5, which I always wanted to avoid. And again, he threatens to play e5, so I decided to play e5 after quite some thought. When you play your pawns to e5 and c5, you always need to make sure that there is no knight coming to d5 or f5 in a nasty way, and I was trying to make sure that that's not gonna happen, and it's in fact not gonna happen here. But always make sure when you weaken those squares that you can cover them in time and that you won't suffer in the long run. So knight e2, pawn to h6, a useful move, preventing knight to g5, which is always annoying once I place my bishop on e6. So now he played knight c4, bishop to e6, no knight g4 possible any longer, and I expected something like knight to e3, after which I would go rook d8, and since I am covering this d5 square quite a lot, actually with 3 pieces, he's not yet ready to jump there, and queen e2, he's not ready to jump next either. So after castle, black is fine. And I was kind of content with this. However, he played queen to e2 first, and I got a bit excited here because I already was thinking about an option to play for win here, which is long castle. And I thought this might be a bit risky, but I also felt that this is the kind of risk I need to take to win the game, because now the game is not any slow maneuvering game with kings on the same side, but it's getting very sharp. I will just throw my pawns and he will also throw his pawns. Game is getting quite tactical very quickly, and there are good chances that one of us will go wrong. Hopefully not me. So a4, g5, a5. Computer now likes to slow down white's play with a6, but I didn't like this because I would give the b6 square, but machine is unimpressed and says it's not a big deal to let the knight hop in there. However, I was considering other stuff on the other side of the board. I was considering g4 and knight h5, aiming to go to f4. So a knight on f4 would be excellent, and I would always recapture with the g-pawn, having an open file then. However, I also saw that he might play knight to e5, and this basically wins a pawn for white. It's a discovered attack. Queen is aiming to take here. If I take on e5, he will recapture and then take my knight. But I had one idea which I tried to make work, which is take once and then go there, because now he at least needs to part with his pair of bishops. So bishop f4 forced, because if the queen moves, I take the knight on e5 for free. So he needs to take. And here I was not so sure how to evaluate the position, because I have this g file, which is excellent. I also have the pair of bishops. However, I'm a pawn down, and also maybe he is quite stable here, and I cannot do a lot. Still, I thought in a practical sense I might get some play. I finally decided not to go for this, and it was probably a good decision, because white is a lot better here after pawn to a6, provoking some weaknesses first, and after b6 go back with the knight. But this is complicated, and I thought, okay, I'll go for the safer but still aggressive approach, which is g4. I'm not sacrificing a pawn yet, and after g4, knight to h4, I was trying the same stuff. Go with the knight to f4. Also, this knight here is hit. It would better have gone to d2. So he went to f5, knight here, and again he could win a pawn with bishop f4 takes and queen takes, but again this is quite risky with the g file, and in this version I think I have good counterplay. Note that I cannot win a piece on c4, because if I took here, he has this discovered check, but he needs to watch out for a lot of tricks. And I, for example, saw one little tactic. If after rook g8 he went to e3, I would have this nice f3 move, deflecting the queen, because the queen needs to guard the knight as well, so the queen couldn't take on f3, and here black would already be a lot better. So I thought there's counterplay, and he did not take my pawn, but instead played bishop. He played bishop to b3, after which I defended my pawn. He played king h1, and I played h5, trying to roll down the board with my pawns. Maybe at some point play f3, maybe at some point play h4, not sure yet, but to make some progress on this side of the board. f3, he wants to close down the position, like if I go g3 he goes h3 and it's all closed, but I'm not interested in this. he's not really threatening to take because I open my h-file. And I'm not interested to take either, because I think he would take with the pawn and then try to neutralize my rooks. So here it's actually good for me to keep the tension and to stay patient, never trade on f3, no, never go g3, but instead just keep it as it is and maybe open it at some better moment. So what to do in the meantime? I improve my king, king b8, getting it out of the center a bit more. He played knight d2, which is actually a big blunder, but I just saw it one move later. I could now have played the rook takes d2, which ends the game, takes, and I win. This bishop having 2 pieces for the rook. However, I played bishop to f6, anticipating if he trades, then I take with the pawn and this knight is in trouble as it can no longer be traded on e7. Again, black is still a lot better here, but yeah, there is no longer the chance for this tactical shot now. He saw it and moved the bishop. Now I don't have rook to d2. And my position is already great. In practical terms, I didn't like to take this pawn, as the a-file might give a lot of counterplay, but instead tried to centralize. He played a6, b6, bishop to b5, and now I had this idea of ripping his pawn structure open by undermining the g2 pawn by playing pawn to h3. However, he could have taken here, coming into the game again. And yeah, there are some fighting chances. However, he also could navigate it and played h3, which opens the position in a much better way for me, because I take here and now I already have access to the g3 square. And actually this rook g3 sacrifice, which I looked at for a second, it's actually good. I was not sure entirely, and so I did not sacrifice the material, but it's very great because if he takes, I take with the h-pawn, and then rook h8, this attack is just crushing through. However, I tried to win material instead of sacrificing it and played rook to d2, winning a pawn there. Black is better, but not as much as in the other line, but still I felt quite safe. And again, I just centralized my queen, keeping control. And after bishop d3, bishop d8 was, I think, the winning idea. Now after bishop c2, I had a very nice breakthrough with f3, opening up this diagonal against his king. And I will play for checkmate very, very soon, and this is very, very dangerous for him. He tried to get away by trading queens, but I just traded. And at this point I saw I can simplify the position. Then go f2. He needs to go passive with his rook. And I can protect my pawn with the bishop, which lets his rook stuck forever. And I thought I have enough scope to improve my position with rook and king versus this single bishop to win the game, which probably is true. In the game, at least, it worked without too much counterplay. I just put my pawn to a safe spot, king to c7, getting the king into the game. And then I played rook e1. He can never take, and he can never activate his rook. And finally, he blundered this a6 pawn, and I had a winning plan of just going with the king to b4, push the a pawn, and he has just this one bishop which cannot really prevent this. The game went on for some 4 or 5 moves, but then he resigned. So that's it for this game. Some interesting opening stuff, some long castle, very sharp game. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Really appreciate that, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.